How many times have you knocked on doors that seemed forever locked? You tried everything, you prayed, you cried, and still silence. Maybe you believed heaven was closed to you. But what if I told you that delay wasn't punishment, but preparation? That what you call the end is just the pause before the breakthrough. There is a powerful prayer, it's not magic, not a formula, it's surrender. And when there is real surrender, the doors that seemed blocked by time, by doubt, or by fear begin to move. What you're about to hear isn't ordinary. It's for those who are tired of trying alone and want to see the impossible happen through the power of prayer. Are you ready? Trusting God is like walking a foggy path. You can see the end of the road, but you feel you're being guided. And here's the thing. Many people think that having faith means knowing exactly how things will turn out. But the truth is, trusting God blooms even without answers when all we have is God. Silence and the peace that rises without explanation. This is living with trust even without clarity. It's a kind of faith that doesn't depend on proof, but on presence. There are days when the heart asks why, and heaven seems silent. In those moments, your soul may feel lost. Thinking silence means abandonment. But it's exactly in that space where powerful prayer is born, the one that doesn't ask, but surrenders. That's when surrender begins, letting go of control, accepting that we want to understand everything, and still choosing to rest. We weren't called to understand, we were called to trust, and that changes everything. So many have gone through this without even realizing it. When you in the middle of chaos, but feel a strength that isn't yours, that strength in the waiting. When fear knocks, but you stand firm, that's hope in God. When, even without answers, you still kneel down and say, "Let your will be done," that's spiritual victory. And in that place of surrender, God begins to act, often invisibly. But what happens when everything goes wrong and you still choose to believe? True faith doesn't show up on easy days. It appears when everything seems to spiral out of control, when the door you prayed so much to open shuts. When people walk away, plans fall apart, and even heaven seems quiet. That's when trust in God becomes a spiritual weapon, not for attack, but for endurance. It's the kind of strength that holds the soul when everything says it's time to quit. Those who've been through it know how hard it is to stay calm. But it's right there that divine strategy reveals itself. God often rearranges the pieces only to show us later that the board was always in His hands. Faith in uncertainty isn't blind, it just chooses to see beyond the obvious. While everything seems stuck, heaven is moving. And those who learn to rest in that truth build a spiritual strength that doesn't collapse in chaos. A practical example. When you lose your job but choose to trust that God's timing is perfect and start learning something new. Or when a friendship ends and instead of growing bitter, you turn to Him in community prayer, just asking for comfort, but also for wisdom. That's active faith. That's walking without a map. And that's when you begin to discover something even deeper about God's heart. In a world where everything changes so fast, opinions, people, opportunities, it's comforting to remember that God does not change. His nature is steady, solid, trustworthy. When everything around you falls apart, He remains good, just, and present. Even when answers take time, our trust in God is rooted not in what we see, but in who He is. That certainty is a safe foundation in shaky times. You know those moments when you look up and say, "God, I don't understand anything." Yeah. The good news is God is in the nothing too. He's there, even in the silence. That doesn't mean He stopped working. It means divine strategy is unfolding. What looks like delay is actually extreme care over every detail. He's the same yesterday, today, and forever. He is a God of healing and protection even when we can't feel it yet. It's our perception that changes, not his character. So instead of chasing signs, we need to recognize God's glory in the simple things, the daily bread, the silent rescue, the unexpected comfort. He is a constant God, and that means our hope in him can be renewed every day. But this constancy demands something deeper from us, a kind of surrender that goes beyond ordinary belief. To believe is to recognize God exists. To trust is to hand over the wheel of life, even without knowing which road he'll take. It's a subtle difference, but it changes everything. When someone says, "I trust God," but still tries to control every detail, that's half faith. Real surrender happens when you let go of the urgency to understand everything. Because deep down, to trust is to die a little to our ego and live according to divine strategy. Some people try to predict God's plan as if he were predictable. But God doesn't operate on our timeline. He works within purpose, and that includes uncomfortable moments where everything seems out of control. A simple example: when you place a relationship in his hands, even if you don't know whether it will continue or end, that's living patience through faith. That's when you pray, and instead of asking, you simply say, "Let your will be done." That kind of faith is muscular, mature, bold, and it's built in real moments, in the silence of your room, in a lonely prayer, or on that day when everything falls apart, but you still say, "God is faithful." That's the kind of trust that moves heaven. That's where real spiritual growth begins, the kind that transforms your faith from theory to reality. And when you live that way, Bible stories stop feeling distant. They become mirrors. Imagine being Joshua for a moment. God gives you a mission to conquer a fortified city, but the strategy isn't swords, it's marching in silence. Sounds illogical, but Joshua trusted. He understood that divine strategy doesn't always make human sense, but carries supernatural power. That march around Jericho wasn't just physical, it was an act of trust without answers, and that trust moved the walls. How many times has God asked you to keep going, even when everything screamed, "Stop"? Marching, for Joshua, meant obeying even without logic. Sometimes, our march is continuing to pray for someone who seems hopeless, staying in a tough job while trusting God's timing, or simply getting out of bed and not giving up. All of that is marching. All of that is faith. That's overcoming through surrender, and God responds to that kind of obedience. Joshua's obedience was active, not passive. And it shows us that powerful prayer isn't made just with words, but with actions. Joshua didn't argue or debate, he simply did. That's trust in God. And when we live like that, the reward isn't just victory, it's the transformation through the process. But even with full surrender, there's one aspect of God's work that still confuses many. Silence. God's silence is often misunderstood. Many see it as abandonment, rejection, or a sign that something is wrong. But in truth, God's silence is one of his greatest acts of love and care. He goes quiet to teach us, to hear what the world's noise keeps us from hearing. Just like a seed grows in the darkness of the soil, God works in the unseen and in that silence. He brings healing and protection our eyes can't yet see. Think of silence not as absence, but as a pause of preparation. It's like the time an artist takes between inspiration and masterpiece. In those moments, what looks like nothing is actually the beginning of everything. Spiritual growth happens in the waiting, in stillness, in the desert. And those who go through that process with an open heart soon discover that silence is an invitation to powerful prayer, not the rehearsed kind, but the raw, broken heart kind. And that's where many stories of breakthrough begin. When everything is quiet and you feel alone, that's when God is closest. He doesn't shout, he whispers. But to hear that whisper, the soul must be still, surrendered, available. Don't rush out of the silence. It's exactly there where you'll begin to understand the true value of waiting. Waiting hurts. It bothers us. It stirs up our anxiety. But it also matures us. Waiting is the ground where faith stops being just a beautiful idea and becomes daily practice. It's in this season that God tunes us like someone adjusting an instrument before a great concert. A soul that learns to wait, learns to trust. And that's where strength in the waiting is born, a strength that doesn't come from effort, but from a hope in God renewed day by day. Have you ever noticed how silence often reveals more about us than noise does? In the noise, we get distracted, but in the waiting, we face ourselves. God uses that time not just to give us something, but to make us into someone. And that's where community prayer gains power. When you share your waiting season with others in faith, the burden becomes lighter and the path clearer. Collective faith reminds us we're not alone. We're all waiting for something. While the world pressures us to hurry, God invites us to remain. And that takes a kind of trust that looks at heaven and says, even if I can't see it, I trust your goodness. This is the kind of faith that sharpens your vision, refines your heart, and prepares the ground for what's coming. Because what seems like stagnation is often just the pause before the breakthrough. But what if that breakthrough takes longer than you expected? We want everything yesterday. But God works on a different clock, the clock of eternity. When He delays, it's not neglect, it's carefulness. He doesn't deliver things in a rush. He prepares you first. A spiritual victory after a long season of prayer feels different. It tastes like a miracle, carries the weight of a testimony, and marks your soul with transformation. And the longer the wait, the greater the glory revealed. Think about Lazarus. Jesus could have healed him on the first day, but He waited on purpose. Because healing would show His power, but resurrection would show His glory. Sometimes what you're going through now is just a chapter before the plot twist. And during that chapter, God is giving you something even greater: spiritual growth, unshakable faith, and emotional maturity. When the answer finally comes, it doesn't just bless you, it blesses everyone around you. It's in this process that trust in God becomes unshakable. You pray and see nothing. You wait and feel nothing. But you keep going. And when it finally unfolds, you understand it wasn't about the request, it was about the process. God is a Father who responds not when you think you're ready, but when He knows you are. And in this atmosphere of surrender, we now approach in prayer, not with urgency, but with reverence. Lord, here we are. Our hearts may be tired, but our knees are firm. Today, we're not here asking for quick answers. We're here asking for something deeper: healing and protection. Healing for wounds that no one else sees. Protection from the fears that haunt us at night. This is a powerful prayer, built on surrender, not control. We recognize we don't hold all the pieces of the puzzle, but we trust that You hold the full picture. Today, we place in Your hands our plans, our fears, our sense of urgency. Take what is Yours, God. Teach us how to wait with faith, to trust, even when everything feels dark. We declare You are faithful, even when we don't understand. Let Your silence be our answer. Let Your waiting be our direction. And let our hope in God be based not in signs, but in who you are. May we rest in your sovereignty and walk with our heads high even in uncertainty. Pour out now, Lord, over every person reading or listening to this prayer, a peace that surpasses all understanding. Renew their hearts, calm their minds, grow their faith. Let this be a time of overcoming, not just because everything turned out okay, but because, even when it didn't, we remained. May this be a prayer of spiritual growth and also of new beginnings, because those who trust always begin again. If this prayer spoke to your heart, don't keep it to yourself. Sharing is also an act of faith. Type Amen in the comments. This simple gesture is like a spiritual echo that reaches the heavens. Here, we believe in the power of community prayer. When one prays, God hears. But when many pray, the heavens move. You are not walking this journey alone. There's a faith community ready to walk with you. Subscribe to this channel to keep receiving words that strengthen your soul. This isn't just about videos. It's about building a place of hope where everyone can grow together. And if you have a specific prayer request, something heavy on your heart, drop it in the comments. We'll pray for you. We'll declare together, trust in God, healing and protection, strength in the waiting, and spiritual victory, even in the midst of the battle. Nothing brings people together like shared faith. And when a community gathers to intercede, miracles happen. So send this video to someone who needs relief, direction, or maybe just a spiritual hug. It might be exactly what they've been waiting for in God's perfect time. Because sometimes, God uses your small action to open someone else's locked door. Now let me ask you, what could change in your life if, instead of controlling everything, you just trusted? Truly trusted. Trusted without seeing, waited without understanding, surrendered without resisting. What could God do if you took that step today? What feels stuck may unlock when you realize the key isn't force, it's faith. Faith in the midst of uncertainty. Faith that endures. Faith that renews. Now tell me, what door is closed in your life? What area do you need to surrender? Type it in the comments. Write it. This isn't just about engagement. It's about speaking into existence what you ready to see God do. And more than that, share this video with someone going through a silent battle. Because sometimes, God's divine strategy starts with a single click. Are you going to keep trying on your own, or will you let God lead? Are you ready to pray deeper, to trust bolder, to live the supernatural in real life? Then answer in the comments, I trust in God, and get ready. Because when faith moves, heaven responds. You've come this far for a reason. God is guiding you, and the next prayer could be exactly the answer you've been waiting for so long. Click on the video and continue your spiritual journey. Subscribe to the channel and activate the bell so you don't miss a word from the throne of God. He is leading you, step by step,